Hello there, White Sox fans. As I'm recording this on November 17th, I checked and the White Sox did not lose today. So it's a good day for White Sox Nation. Yeah, it was a rough one. I didn't make a lot of videos. It was tough to want to do that. But, hope springs eternal as we look towards the spring. And before we can really take a look at what we should do and what we need to do to rebuild this team, it's going to be a long road. And we know that the front office is not going to make the same decisions we will. First thing we need to do is just take stock of what we have. About a year ago, I created a video that was projecting out the 5-year runway, if you will, of the White Sox roster. This is something that historically teams have done. They've got it up on their big board at the office, which is just looking at what talent they have in-house. This is not for us to predict the future, but this is just to see what we have and then see what holes we need to fill. And of course, I know, as a lot of you are thinking about that, the answer is we have nothing but holes. We have to fill every position, which is true and it isn't. We'll take a look at that right now. So for better or worse, we're going to take a look at the White Sox as they're constructed right now, presuming team control gets maxed out on every player, which doesn't happen. There's going to be some DFAs on this list, on this team, that won't even play next year, even though technically they are still under team control for the moment. And then we're looking at everybody that has an option year, presuming that they all get picked up. So that's the idea of this, is what do we have in-house in this moment? And in case that's a little confusing, maybe it's best we can look back at last year, the video I made a year ago, and I was hoping to update this chart as we went. As trades happened, I would update it. I didn't do that. Hopefully I will this year because that means we have a lot of work ahead of ourselves right now. And I have not even actually looked at this yet to look at what I made last year. The team has changed a lot in the last 12 months. So let's start out. I think I've got the pitching staff. Yeah, here we go. Whoa. Already. So yeah, at the time I made this last year, we knew Dylan Cease was on the trade block. We knew it was likely he was going to be traded, but technically we had team control over him for 2 more years. Certainly he got traded away, so we'll have to remove him and fill in the gaps. Michael Kopech, same exact situation. Michael Soroka at the time, I mean, he was in the starting rotation when the White Sox season started, probably at the number 5 spot, but man, he did not even hold on to that. I do have to give credit to the White Sox front office that they picked up some guys like Erick Fedde who really did a good job. Really paid off. Chris Flexen wasn't great, but he was okay. I did better than I thought he was going to do, to be honest with you. Jesse Schultens is on this list. Matthew Thompson. Boy, I was really grasping at straws really early on, trying to figure out what the starting rotation was going to be. And look at this. I had zero faith that Garrett Crochet was actually going to stick in the rotation. I put him as a closer option. So yeah, there's a lot to clean up on here. And then as we look at our offense, Corey Lee catching, Andrew Vaughn, obviously starting first base. And as we see, he's arbitration eligible. That's what A1, A2, A3 means through 2027. Nicky Lopez, he was arbitration eligible. We know he got DFA'd recently. I actually thought he did a pretty good job. He did what we needed him to do. I was hoping he would stick around maybe as a utility player. Paul DeYoung got traded away. Colson Montgomery is probably, penciled in for that position next year. So this is a great example of Yoan Moncada. We had him under team control for the following year, 2025 as well. Even a year ago, we knew that this was very, very likely to not be exercised. But because we had him under team control, I still included him for 2025. Obviously, I put an out there for me. Andrew Benintendi, he is under a contract through 2027, so that's not going to change. There's always the possibility that at some point he earns enough trade value that maybe he's part of a package that gets sent out. But right now we have him through 2027. And that is the same of Luis. He's absolutely coming back next year. And there are options for the following 2 years. So I guess I do try to hedge the bets a little bit, showing that there's an option and I try to give a backup option. And I think Uleki Cespedes is not even with the White Sox anymore as we look ahead there. Right field, I had Oscar Colas, who I think he started the season as the right fielder for the White Sox. Did not really stick there. He did develop a lot more in the minor leagues. He's still in the system, so we'll see. And Eloy, there's going to be a big change at the DH position as we have Eloy set for sure through 2025, and then he had options through 2026 and 2027. We'll be filling that hole big time. So even just looking at this on its face before making any other changes, I think catcher is something that we have set. Corey Lee, that was his first extended look in the major leagues. He did pretty well. He absolutely was a streaky hitter, and there was a lot of time where he was just a guaranteed out. I hate to say it, but he was young. Let's get those bad at bats out of the way during a season which we're losing 120 some games anyway. Edgar Quiero, as we've heard, has developed a lot, so he's going to be knocking on the door next year. We'll see. He might be battling Corey Lee for the starting catcher spot next year. Andrew Vaughn, man, every year lately, I've been thinking and saying that this is his make or break season. And every year he has been kind of in the middle. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't really proven himself either. He's eligible next year. I'm sure he's absolutely going to come back. I'm going to save you a lot of struggle, and I'm going to do this off camera, and then we'll come back and take a look at it. Okay, so first thing I did is I went back into my Photoshop files, and I just eliminated everybody from that old one who's not even part of the organization anymore. And wow, look how empty this looks. Obviously, there are people like Fletcher as our, I guess, right fielder at this point. People that have been with the team, but the last time I made this, 5-year projection, he was not on the team yet. It's kind of amazing how much turnover there has been in the last 12 months. Also, I was kind of laughing about the fact that I was accurate with our catcher and backup catcher. However, that was before we had signed Martin Maldonado and Max Stassi. They would have clogged this up, but obviously they are certainly not part of the team anymore. So that actually kind of works out well for us still. And then rotation wise, so this was, again, when I did this last, we still had Dylan Cease on board, and I had Garrett Crochet penciled in as our closer. At that time, he had made it known that he wanted to be a starter, but I just didn't see that happening. Thought maybe he's a guy that'll get a spot start here or there, maybe start a game during a doubleheader. Did not know he was going to become a legit, real deal ace. I mean, what an incredible season he had. And even as I'm writing this now, is he going to get traded this offseason? I think there's a chance. I'm saying there's a good chance. But in this moment, at least, we do have him under control. He actually is controllable next year, but I am seeing that I have not updated these years yet. So I will do that and get us all up to date. Okay, so I've got all these files correct now. And let's just start with the rotation, because this is a place of, oddly enough, optimism for me. When we did this last time, this was before we had Chris Flexen, before we had Erick Fedde. So Garrett Crochet, obviously, if he's with us, that's good. I don't know how much I believe in his long-term health, but at least for the time being, if the White Sox don't trade him, I'm okay with that. We have him for the following year as well, so there's no rush. Also, you see behind him is Noah Schultz. He is going to force his way into the rotation sooner than later. I think would be fine penciling him in earlier on. He's, I believe, a lot of talent prognosticators, people that know a lot more than me about the minor leagues, say he's the best left-handed starting pitcher in the entire minor leagues, not just the White Sox system, but overall. So I'm really excited about the ceiling for Noah Schultz right now. Also, we had maybe brief, but flashes of potential when it came to Jonathan Cannon and Drew Thorpe. Thorpe, unfortunately, ended up injured for the end of the season, but we saw flashes of some possibility, some potential there. Also, a name that I'm not seeing on here yet. Oh, here it is. Davis Martin. He was injured in the past. He is back and healthy now. I really like Davis Martin. I maybe am too much of a believer in him, but I think as it stands right now, if opening day was tomorrow, Davis Martin is in the starting rotation. Let's take a look at the White Sox stats from last year, because I bet there are people that I am forgetting, just flat out forgetting. It is remarkable. Look at how many different people, 14 different players. No, actually more than that, 14, 15, 16 different players started at least one game for the White Sox last year. So yeah, we see Jonathan Cannon, amazingly, he had the third most starts on the year. Davis Martin had 10. Then Michael Soroka, who is not with the team, I believe, anymore. There's Drew Thorpe. Oh, Nick Nastrini. There's the name I forgot. That's why I'm happy to be doing this. Ky Bush. Interesting to see that Ky Bush came up. I was putting Ky Bush to come up in 2027. So yeah, he definitely beat that. Okay, so looking at this page now, I think I've got a good idea. Garrett Crochet, Davis Martin, Nick Nastrini, Jonathan Cannon, and Drew Thorpe. So that, I think, is what I'm going to put as my starting 5 right now, if the season were to start today, before any other trades or anything else changes. Just want to point out some other names in here. Jesse Schultens, I'm sure you all remember him. He got a good look in 2023, but 2024 was lost to Tommy John surgery. And then Matthew Thompson was a fairly highly regarded prospect with the White Sox, but then he was traded last year for Bailey Horn of the Cubs, a trade that I don't know if that one's going to work out. And maybe it already officially hasn't. But whatever the case, Matthew Thompson no longer with the club. As you see, there's some different colors. Black means you can set it in stone. You can write it down in ink because that's a guy that's on the team and in. Blue is I'm just guessing. I use red when there's an option. So we don't know for sure if that person's going to be on the team, but he is under team control. So that's why he appears on the map here. Yes, I'm calling this the map of our future. Davis Martin, I'm putting in blue because I'm not totally confident. I do like him. I like his style a lot. I think he's a good, smart pitcher, but I don't know about his health. Don't know how much he will, remain in that position as a regular part of the rotation. That said, to some degree, I'm hedging my bets because I have him as the number 2 guy behind Garrett Crochet, but I'm also not confident in him. So I'm putting him really high in the rotation while not being 100% confident. Nick Nastrini, I'm also keeping in the blue because he's an option. And I should just put all of these other guys. I'm going to put Kai Bush right here and Jake Eder because any of those guys could come up and impress in spring training. Obviously, I believe there's going to be some other veteran innings eating type of pitcher signed in this offseason. So it's going to really just immediately mess with this, and probably 2. Also, I think Noah Schultz is going to work his way into the rotation this year. Right now, I've got him, because I want to give him that number 1 spot because I think he's going to be an ace type pitcher. He's going to come into the rotation to be that number 1 guy, and he's not going to wait till 2027. He will appear probably some point this year and then be a staple in the rotation starting in 2026. That's my belief. So I'm going on record saying that here. So realistically, he should, bump one of these other guys later. But just for the sake of this chart, we're keeping this. Also, you really see how little is on the books financially for the White Sox as things stand right now. Davis Martin, Jonathan Cannon, Drew Thorpe, and then whoever comes in for that number 5 spot, those are all pre-arbitration eligible guys that only have a handful of starts to their name, days, not years of service time so far. I'm not exactly sure when it comes to Davis Martin because he did spend an entire year, just about, maybe more, on the injured list, which you do earn service time for that if you go down with the injury while you're on the big league team. I don't remember if that happened while he was in the bigs or not. So his arbitration year might be a year earlier than what we're seeing here. But yeah, I've got everybody else pre-arb eligible up until 2028, which has just got to excite the very cheap White Sox brass. And then when we get to closer, let's take a look. Here's a trivia question that I don't know the answer to. Who got the saves? The White Sox didn't win very many games in general, as we all know, but who got the saves for the games that did have a save? Let's learn together. The saves were logged, oh my gosh, 2 from Tanner Banks, who was traded at the deadline, 2 from John Brebbia. Not sure if he's under control anymore. I think he was just released during the season last year. Jordan Leisure with 2. Justin Anderson, who is a bubble candidate. Is he going to come back or not? Jonathan Cannon. Boy, that's funny. He got a save. He started 23 games, but of his 2 non-start, he started 21 games. Out of his 2 non-starts, 1 was an actual save. Eniel De Los Santos, Frazier Ellard, Davy Garcia, and Chad Kuhl. Who is our closer going to be? I don't have a clue. Let's pretend somebody like Jake Eder, he gets a start in the bullpen. I'm going to throw Jared Schuster in along with Jake Eder as guys that might become the closer. But this is going to be the most auto-whack one for sure. And that is why I'm not predicting anybody else in the bullpen. Because bullpen is notoriously unpredictable and huge changeover year after year. So again, they have that same projection where either of these guys, they're not going to be hitting arbitration for several years. So I feel like taking a look at our outfield next, because I think that will be a quicker, easier one to do. And in right field, I'm putting Dominic Fletcher in. Man alive, he was actually a really fun person to watch this last year. Not a lot can be said of White Sox players that were fun to watch. Dominic Fletcher is a really, really strong defender out there. He is making the league minimum for the next 2 years and then goes into arbitration 2027. And that's where I have him then switching over to center field after Luis. I'm assuming we pick up both of his options, and then he takes over in center for Luis. Our 4th outfielder in a couple of years, how do we replace Andrew Benintendi? Let's take a look. And presto, here we go. Here is our outfield for the next 5 years. We'll have Andrew Benintendi for the next three of them for sure. He's kind of got an untradeable contract. He's had his moments. He even had a really strong finish to the season. A lot of White Sox actually had a surprisingly strong, not dominant by any means, but decent finish to the year. Hopefully we'll be able to grow on decent. But yeah, Benintendi for the next 3 years. And then, obviously looking this far out, it's anyone's guess. But the top two prospects in the White Sox system who are just at single A right now are George Wilkow and Samuel Zavala. Zavala came over in the Dylan Cease trade, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, we have Luis for the next 3 years, assuming his options get picked up. We talked about Dominic Fletcher already. And then do I really believe Oscar Colas is suddenly going to become a regular starter in 2028? Not really, no. If it hasn't happened by 2028, he's not going to be with the team anymore. But there's a chance that he is. Maybe I should have penciled him into the fourth outfielder role, but Zach DeLoach in limited time, I think, gets that off the bat right now. I mean, we do have Corey Julks in the system, which, he's a fun guy to watch, but I don't really feel like he's part of the future of the team. So maybe I should have put him in there just because he's got a leg up a little bit because he's got more experience, but I didn't. Then I have Gavin Sheets as our designated hitter. He's going to arbitration for the first time. And this is the first time I bring this up, that today, as I'm recording this, is the non-tender deadline. And I honestly think that Gavin Sheets is a non-tender candidate big time. So right now, I would say that Gavin Sheets has a chance of being removed from the team. He could still re-sign with the White Sox on a lesser deal or a minor league deal, or he'll probably look around, try to find someplace else where he can get a major league contract. I think Gavin Sheets does not have a future with the club. We will check the news. I have not looked at MLBTradeRumors.com at all today or even yesterday because I wanted to do this live here, get the live reaction. After him, I have Tim Elko being the guy that steps up to become the DH. And of course, that position, the DH position, that could go to Oscar Colas, that could go to anybody who's swinging a hot bat in the minors. Zach DeLoach was one of those guys who really demanded he be called up. And then, he had moments here or there. Obviously, a lot of young guys figuring it out on the job at the major league level without support around them. But Tim Elko, he's a guy that I think could maybe start to step into he made it up to AAA last year. So Tim Elko actually could be the guy. If I see that Gavin Sheets was non-tendered today, I would just move Tim Elko into that DH role starting immediately. But again, as I always like to do this, the more color you see on this page, the more we see how much is unsettled. And there's a lot of color on this page. We have Benintendi for a bit. We have Luis, and we have Dominic Fletcher. And again, even with Dominic Fletcher, I really hope he continues to grow, but he is not a star by any means yet. But although he is a star with a glove, so he's earned a place. I'm happy to have him in here, written in pen, that he is going to be a member of this team from opening day. And hopefully moving forward, he'll just continue to grow. Finally, we move on to the infield. And again, this is just going off largely what I had from last year. I have not touched this one yet. I'm not going to mess at all with the catcher position, the starting catcher or the backup catcher. Jose Rodriguez is a highly regarded prospect to some degree. I think he's moved down the depth charts quite a bit, even since a year ago. I'm going to be putting Brooks Baldwin in that number 2 spot, the second base spot, that is. Nicky Lopez, in case you weren't aware, I really thought he did a good job with us, but he was non-tendered. His option was not picked up. So he could still come back, but right now he is not part of the club. Colson Montgomery, right now you would give him that nod as being our starting shortstop, with Brian Ramos taking over at third base. And then looking at the utility spot, would that be Lenyn Sosa? Maybe. Lenyn actually was a good idea for designated hitter also. Like all these guys, he's young, still figuring it out, but man, Lenyn Sosa has some undeniable power, surprising, like Juan Uribe style power. But I will do a deeper dive really quick and be back with my update here. And here's what I come up with. If having a lot of color on the screen is a bad sign, then you see how unsettled our infield is. Corey Lee and Andrew Vaughn, really the only sure things. Although I saw MLB Trade Rumors also considered Andrew Vaughn a non-tender candidate this year. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm just noticing I'm not giving Corey Lee, I haven't called out his arbitration years, but that would actually start 27, 28, and 29 for Corey Lee, as I'm sure he got a full season in last year. Brooks Baldwin, as I mentioned, people much smarter than me that know the system a lot better than me rave about this guy. So I think he does have the lead for having that second base job as things stand right now. Colson Montgomery, I could see the White Sox wanting to keep him down for another couple of weeks to get that additional year of team control, which would push back those arbitration years. But I think Colson Montgomery, as things stand right now, he would have the edge on shortstop. Brian Ramos, again, he has impressed in a very small sample size. We have a lot to learn about these guys, and they have a lot to learn about the game overall. And then also, Braden Shoemake is the one name I didn't think of earlier as I was looking back at the stats and what's going on. He's a guy that has, again, a lot of people saying good things about him. He had experience last year with the White Sox. I think he would have the edge to make the team, maybe not make the team as a starter, but a guy off the bench. And as mentioned at the very top of this, Edgar Quero is considered to be the stronger of the two catchers between he and Corey Lee. So I could see him starting out splitting time with Corey Lee right now, but eventually taking over that number one spot. I'm a big fan of Corey Lee. It's really nice to have a catcher that has some wheels, and that guy, for a catcher especially, can run. He can steal some bases. Now, like I said, I wanted to do this live, get the live reaction. Let's see if they've announced who is going to be tendered contracts for the next year. And right away, I just want to mention that I've already been proven wrong. First off, this is the offseason outlook from MLB Trade Rumors, where they looked at everybody that was arbitration eligible and also identified who they thought the White Sox would non-tender. And they non-tendered just about everybody but Garrett Crochet. I was hoping Nicky Lopez would come back. He's gone. Matt Foster, I thought, well, he's at $900,000. That's barely over the minimum, which is about $750,000 this year. So Matt Foster, they'll definitely bring him back for that price. Foster was non-tendered pretty recently. So as we see everybody else on here, Garrett Crochet was the one person they thought, obviously, he's coming back. But everybody else, Eniel De Los Santos at 1.7, Andrew Vaughn at 6.4 million, Justin Anderson at 1.1, Jimmy Lambert at 1.2. Both of those guys, I'm not crazy about them, but at that price tag, it's not that much. Those are the types of guys that could get, same with Eniel De Los Santos, the upside might be there, and that's a small gamble. I mean, even if they DFA him and aren't able to recoup anything, some other team would pick them up, and the league minimum would cover the majority of their contracts. Then there's Gavin Sheets at 2.6. I really think Gavin Sheets is a non-tender candidate. And then again, Steven Wilson kind of falls into the same boat as those previous guys, those previous arms I was talking about. Also, he was a guy that came over in the Dylan Cease trade. So he has a bit of a track record, at least for 2 years prior to joining the White Sox, of being a decent pitcher with the Padres. Moment of truth, maybe, if any news has been announced. American League non-tenders, here we go. White Sox will non-tender Gavin Sheets. All right. Okay, so I picked that one correctly, and I guess that's it. Yeah, that's it. Let me see the White Sox page just in case. That's not a verified that they did tender contracts to everybody else. No other news yet. So Gavin Sheets, currently a free agent. Again, not a surprise. And I know there's a lot of people on this channel that like Gavin Sheets a lot. And he's a likable guy. As a human being, he seems like a pretty cool dude. But the one tool he had was his power. And last year, it just didn't show up. He had 451 at-bats, only hit 10 home runs. And if that's your skill, if that's all you can bring to the table, it's not enough. He batted .233. His on-base plus slugging plus was 90, which meant he was only 10% worse than the average player, which is actually better than I thought it was going to be. But an on-base plus slugging in the mid 600s when you're a power guy, boy, I do just want to see more from him than what we got. Take a quick look. 43 walks, actually not bad. Better than I thought it was going to be. 501 plate appearances and only 10 home runs. And also, by the way, 10 home runs last year in more than 100 fewer at-bats. Hoping to see that growth. You know, he went from 11 home runs up to 15. Is that going to keep progressing? And it did not. It didn't even level off. It went down to 10 for the previous 2 years. I wish for the best for Gavin Sheets. If he ends up back in the White Sox system on a minor league deal, maybe he can figure some things out. But yeah, so there is a little bit of money savings as we're talking about what his arbitration amount would have been. White Sox would have been on the hook for, this isn't a confirmed number, but an estimated $2.6 million. That's another 2.6 that's freed up in addition to the other savings from Nicky Lopez, Matt Foster. So As it stands, again, we don't know anything but the last line in this write-up about Gavin Sheets. Vaughn is still the first baseman on paper, though it's possible that he also winds up non-tendered today. Again, as I'm recording this at almost 6 p.m. on Friday, I believe he's coming back, but time will tell on that one. Thank you all for watching this very much in the weeds look at the White Sox organization and how things stand in this exact moment. Those pages that I put together, that's not how the opening day lineup is going to look. It's not how the opening day rotation is going to look, but just taking stock of what we have in-house in this exact moment, that to me is how things would shake out. Let me know if I was way off on something or something that you would do different. Obviously, what we would all do different is we would have more free agent signings, and there's going to be some free agent signings. But as things stand today, that's what the White Sox have in-house. And to be honest with you, I know there's a lot of unproven talent there, but there's a lot of good, exciting young talent. I'm a sucker for spring training because I love seeing these guys play and get their first looks and first chances. And I think there's reason to be optimistic about the individual players. The team as a whole, obviously, there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of holes. There's a lot of unknowns, but there's some exciting players to watch. So rooting for them individually, and of course, really rooting that Jerry sells the team. There's a lot of other White Sox news to talk about, new coach, possible different stadium. Let me know anything that you guys want me to make a video on. Till then, thank you for watching. See you next time.